Welcome into Ride the Line, the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. Just like you can't teach that the UConn Huskies are the best team in America. Bada boom, man of the people in the room, G-Money Grant Mitchell. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Tanner. Thank you. And congratulations to the UConn Huskies. That game against San Diego State. I mean, they were up 9 at halftime. This is how good UConn is. They won by 30, and you would say it was a close game. Like, that's how good. They are so much better than everybody they play. And I mean, San Diego State tried to hang in there, but it just wasn't going to happen for them. UConn was clearly the superior team.
To beat UConn, the formula is actually really simple to beat UConn. You need to be able to score. That's it. If you can score, you're going to be just fine, but you need to score consistently. Like, UConn never gets low, right? Like, they might go through their scoring lulls and not score for a couple minutes, but they play such good defense and they just stay even kiltered in the first half. And then the second half, they just explode. And they just literally beat San Diego State into the ground last night. Now, San Diego State was not a good basketball team. They are not on the same level of UConn. They had Jaden Ledee is the only person that can legitimately compete. And he did a nice job going against Donovan Clingan. Like, Donovan Clingan was a little overmatched going against Ledee. But as a whole last night, they're just bigger, faster, stronger than everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we are going to talk about UConn. We're going to recap all of the games from Thursday, and then we're going to talk about the Friday Sweet 16 matchups and some Saturday Elite 8 games. You know, we would talk about Sunday, but we don't know what those games are. But before we do jump into that, Tanner, we have some big news regarding the show and where it's going to be posted moving forward.
Yes, so we are moving to a new YouTube channel. It's still WSN. It's still Ride the Line, but we are starting a separate Ride the Line YouTube channel, and we will post some show clips on this channel, but the Ride the Line content, the majority of it is going to be on the new YouTube channel. So we will link that on Twitter. I will link that in the description below. It's still pretty dry. It's still bare bone. We're going to be setting it up this weekend more so, but we'll at least link it so you guys have it and know where to find us on Monday and Thursday. Now we'll be doing about a 30-minute show twice a week instead of 3 15 to 20-minute shows.
Yep, 100%. So guys, if you are, longtime fans, or if you're new fans, just be on the lookout for that channel. Again, check in with the socials, and just early next week, just search up Ride the Line. You will probably be able to find us that way. But yeah, Tanner, let's go ahead. Let's talk about these games. Obviously, we started with UConn there. Not major talking points. I mean, it was a national championship rematch, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like Duke, Kentucky, UNC of the olden days. Like, San Diego State had a very nice run, but in all reality, nobody really expected them to get back to the national championship this year. They're not a perennial contender. To your point, Jaden Ledee was up for it. I think he scored like 11 of their first 15 points. He did try, but I agree with you. If you're going to beat UConn, or at least give them a battle, it's not going to come with your defense. It's going to come because you made shots, and the San Diego State team was just not equipped to do that.
Yeah, it's got to be a team effort when you play UConn. You can't have one guy, because UConn is just a team that's built on it's a full team. And look at the scoring last night. I think Stephon Castle was one of the biggest scorers. He had a great game as a freshman there, but Donovan Clingan stepped up, Cam Spencer. So you can't bet player props in Massachusetts. I went to the game last night and I was watching them warm up, and Cam Spencer was legitimately not missing in warm-ups at all. I'm like, if I could bet player props right now, this is the dude to bet. He was so locked in. And that man, I know we're getting a little off track in terms of the game, but this is what people want to hear. He's a legitimate psychopath. He does not. So they do this thing, and I didn't realize they do this in the tournament. They shake hands. So they'll line up and they'll legit shake hands after the national anthem. Bro walked to the locker room and they told him, you got to go back and shake somebody's hand. So he sprints back to do it. And then when they do the player intros, they'll introduce the centers together, the guards, the forwards, and they're expected to go give each other a fist bump in the half court. He got introduced. He was the last one, and he didn't go to the half court. He just went back to sit on the bench. Bro, you got to go over and give that dude a fist bump. And he's like, okay, sprints over. He runs back. He is psycho.
Well, I mean, his coach is a psycho. It was probably bred. He probably learned it from this guy in charge.
He loves Hurley. He doesn't have social media either. That's the thing about Cam Spencer. No social media. In the NIL world, he does not care about having social media, which is awesome. He just wants to go out, make 3-pointers, and whoop your you-know-what.
Yeah, and he had a really good game. Speaking of college prop bets, by the way, did you see the NCAA is trying to ban them across the whole country?
I don't blame him. I mean, it sucks, but I don't blame him. I mean, it's harder in the world of NIL because kids are getting paid off, but like we see it like with Porter in the NBA, right? Like no matter how much money you make, you can still fall for like getting scammed with player props or somebody coming to you and say, hey, go under tonight and here's $1 million or whatever the number is. But I don't think it's a bad idea.
I don't either. And I also think that, there's a big harassment. Like we all know people or we see people online that just take things too far. Like if someone says, okay, the game is rigged, like whatever. But then you have the people who actually will tweet the players like, I hate you and everything you stand for. And like this about your family or like this about your kids, whatever. Like those are the people that end up ruining it for everybody, because like a lot of these players are getting a lot of verbal and online abuse. Like there have been death threats made against players when they don't score over 15 and a half points, like whatever the line is. So, I think that's also a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not bad. It's just it is what it is in today's world. It's not like going to change my perspective of college betting. I don't really rely on college player props much, but there is some value there. Moving into our next game, do you have any more thoughts on UConn?
Now let's talk about the other number 1 seed. Let's talk about Bama and UNC.
So I didn't watch a lot of these games because I watched the East region a lot last night, but I was following the UNC Alabama game a little bit. This just comes down to UNC didn't play defense. Like that was their biggest issue. They didn't get the stops when they needed to. They had a big lead at the half. They covered the first half spread because I had that, and then they fell apart in the second half. So credit to Alabama, but I'll let you talk about this game a little more because I was not glued to it.
Yeah, so Grant Nelson was the hero of this game, a transfer from the summer. He was amazing. He'd only scored 6 points in the first 2 tournament games. He winds up with 24 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. He made a ton of clutch free throws and a couple clutch buckets, had a big and one that basically sealed the game for them down the stretch there. That being said, UNC also capitulated. I mean, RJ Davis, ACC Player of the Year, scored more than 21 points per game in the regular season. In this game, he goes 4 of 20 from the field. Obviously, that's not going to do it. Armando Bacot, I didn't necessarily expect him to be a monster, but I thought that UNC could kind of muck the game up with him on the inside because he's big and physical, and Bama has a lot of things, but they're not a team that wants to go blow for blow in the post. He was all right, 19 points, 12 rebounds, but 8 of 18 from the field, didn't have a super high impact. I thought he got beat on a lot of defensive possessions as well. And then Alabama, just their pace of play. Like there's so many times where make or miss, they got down the court in such a hurry that UNC wasn't even matched up yet. And especially after made shots, like there was a big sequence in the second half, like the last 7 minutes or so, where UNC makes a shot to go up, I think 5 points. And again, at that point, like a 5-point lead is pretty substantial, especially in the college game. Alabama gets the ball out. It's a made shot. They get the ball down and they take a 3-pointer within like 3 seconds. And UNC still hasn't even got matched up yet. And then you got Bacot trying to close out on a guard. They shoot right over him. And now it's a close game again all of a sudden. So Alabama absolutely was just more focused, more disciplined in their approach to the game. I think they absolutely deserved to win that game. Harrison Ingram, I believe it was, terrible 3-point shot. Apologies if it wasn't Harrison Ingram, but it was somebody like with a minute left. It's very early in the shot clock. They get the ball open on a swing when UNC has a 1-point lead and they go for the 3. It was stupid. Drain the clock, get a better shot than that. But overall, Alabama was the better team, and they deserve to move on.
Yeah, I mean, star players not stepping up in big game situations. That's what it comes down to. Now, speaking of college player props, Grant, you know who bet me over real good last night?
Who was that?
Why don't you take a guess?
Well, RJ Davis, maybe?
No, Caleb Love.
Oh, okay. Love. I didn't know we were changing games. Yeah.
No, we're changing games because I need to talk about Caleb Love. In your past 5 games, Caleb, 30%, 18%, 35%, 40% against Dayton, who's terrible. And then 27% from the field against Clemson. You scored 13 points. You didn't make a 3-pointer. You had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and you turned the ball over 3 times. You've turned the ball over 7 times in the past 2 games. That's why. Now, credit to Clemson. Clemson's playing really good basketball, but when your best player, the guy that you rely on, does that, you don't have a chance of winning. When you're not a well-rounded basketball team, when you are primarily a one-man show, that's the issue.
I didn't get a lot right in my bracket, okay? I had Auburn winning the national championship. But if you remember, one of the things I said was of all the high seed or the low seeds, I guess, I am the most out on Arizona because you can't win with Caleb Love. And look, this isn't a personal attack on the guy. Never met him. Don't know anything about him. I'm not insulting him personally. I just know that he is a very streaky shooter, and he also will continue to shoot no matter what. I said it's not unrealistic. You see him go 2 of 13 from three in a big game and Arizona loses. Well, and this one, he goes 5 of 18 from the field, 0 of 9 from three. And to your point, like, yeah, he had a good steal and he had an and one. He had some nice drives, but overall, just that level of inefficiency from your star player not showing up in the biggest game of the season against a Clemson team that you're right is playing well, but Clemson has not done anything special this entire tournament. They are good because they're consistent and they're above average on both ends, but they don't have a standout quality or asset. They've got good players, but none of them are like national player of the years or lottery picks in the NBA like that. If you're a team like Arizona, which does have this high end punch, you have to beat yourself for Clemson to win that game. And that is ultimately what happened. Again, Arizona just didn't make their shots. They go 18% from 3-point land. Clemson deserved to win that game. They were just better on the night.
Clemson's just got big physical white boys. That's what they play. That's how the guys wear that knee-high socks and they just beat the crap out of you.
I will say also a very underrated component of March Madness is experience. Clemson's got 4 seniors and 1 junior in their starting 5. So I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're the most experienced team left in the field.
I mean, you look at Clemson just off the eye test, like they don't look like they should be in the NCAA tournament, but they're physical. That's the biggest thing. Caleb Love, 0 for 9, 3-point range. Terrible. 3 for 8 the game before that. He in the past his final 6 games of the year, he was 0 for 6, 3 for 8, 1 for 7, 3 for 12, 3 for 8, 0 for 9 from 3. Terrible, Caleb. Terrible. He should have won last night. All right, moving into our next game here to talk about real quick. Illinois versus Iowa State. Iowa State, the shot selection of Iowa State, the fadeaway mid-range jumper all night. What are you doing? You're terrible. You can't make that shot. The quick threes when you have time to set your offense up, when you can't make threes. They're terrible. The Iowa State's really bad.
Yeah, a lot of the tough shots they were taking was just a byproduct of them not being a great offensive team. Like, I don't think they wanted to take those shots, but they just couldn't get to open looks. They couldn't get their sets to result in anything. So that's ultimately what ended up happening. Illinois has been playing really good basketball since pretty much the end of the regular season. They've won 7 straight, 10 of their last 11. This is a team that is streaky, is hot. Again, this game ended up only being 3 points, but Illinois was up by 10 at the half, and I really did think they were in control of this game. Terrence Shannon Jr. has been unreal. I mean, he averaged 23 points in the season. That's up to 28 and a half in the tournament. Had basically the game deciding play where he gets a steal and then he breaks out for a dunk right at the end of the game. And the most important or most impressive thing about that, he scored 29 points in this game. He only played 22 minutes. Like that's a crazy level of efficiency against what KenPom said was the best defense in the country. And Iowa State might not be a national championship contender, but you can't knock them for their defense. They're a good team. Didn't matter. Illinois got a very high offensive ceiling. Still didn't shoot the 3 well in this game, only 31%, and yet they still pretty much had control of this game the entire way.
The last thing I'll say here is the fact in the East region, like if anyone said, and again, Auburn, we didn't get the matchup, Yale beat them, but if Yale beat them, I'm assuming UConn was going to beat them. But if anyone ever says Iowa State could have beaten UConn, that is preposterous because there's no chance that team could beat. Like Illinois, slim chance of beating UConn, but they have a chance of beating UConn more than Iowa State because Iowa State's shots, UConn, in the first 4 minutes of the past 2 games that Iowa State has played, UConn would have been up 20-4. They would have beaten that bad.
Yeah, I agree. It would not have. I don't know what the spread would have been. Probably like 12.5, 13.5. I definitely would have taken the chalk there. I definitely would have taken UConn.
Probably not Iowa State. So this is 8.5. I bet Iowa State would have been like 9.5. I think you give them 1 more point because again, they only lost to Illinois, and then San Diego State was up to like 12 by opening tip, and that should have been 16.
I think it opened at like 9.5 against San Diego State, right?
Yeah, and it went up 3 points. By tip last night, it was 12. It could have been them to win by like 20 plus last night was like only plus 250.
So. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's talk about some of these Friday games. Probably spent a little too long in the review, but we got NC State going against Marquette in this one. The DJ Burns Jr. National phenomenon. Will it live on or not? Going against the Marquette Golden Eagles team that fits that KenPom criteria, top 40 offense, top 22 defense, all that good stuff. Tyler Kolek was injured heading into the tournament, showed no real signs of rust. He's been playing out of his mind so far recently. NC State's plus 6.5 on the spread here. You don't have to have a betting pick, or if you do, great, but just where are you looking at with this game?
Leaning NC State, rooting for NC State. I think the NC State story is awesome, so I would like to see them win the game. But I don't know. I probably will play something in this game, but it probably is more like a live bet. I want to see how NC State comes out because you're always that 6.5 is always going to be available if Marquette goes on a little bit of a run, and I think NC State's good enough to keep it close.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if Marquette's up like 1 at halftime, they're probably still minus 6.5, minus 5.5, something like that. And I agree with you. I wouldn't take a pick. I'm probably not going to play anything opening because with a team like NC State is not a good basketball team. We've seen that this entire season. That being said, they're on a run. Like they were the 10 seed in the ACC tournament. They go all the way. They win that thing, and now they're here in the Sweet 16 in March Madness. So they're just on a run right now. It kind of depends on how they come out in this game. I am expecting Marquette to win, but NC State might do it. I mean, it just happens sometimes. Teams that are bad all year just get hot.
Yeah, NC State's playing better than they are. Like Mohamed Diarra, I think he averaged like 8 points this season. He's been double figures his past 4 games or something, or 4 of his past 5. Like they're just playing better than they are. Moving into our next game here tonight, we have Gonzaga and Purdue. I think Purdue rolls Gonzaga. I think this Purdue team is legitimate, and like people are just not putting enough respect on their name. They're very good, and Zach Edey is fantastic.
Yeah, so Gonzaga is interesting because their offensive efficiency means that in theory they might be able to keep up with Purdue. But with that being said, I just it's I don't want to state the obvious here, but they can't guard Zach Edey, and like he averages 24 and 12. Again, I know it's kind of stating the obvious, but you have people that can make life tough for him, or you have teams that can maybe take his teammates away. I don't think Gonzaga can do any of that. I think Purdue's just going to score at will in this game. Gonzaga's offense really isn't going to play a part here. I would probably play the over here. I could see this going over 154.5, but I definitely do think Purdue gets a large win as well.
I agree. I think Purdue is the much better team here. Duke Houston. I'd lean Duke plus 4.5 here. Houston, I feel like they're a little overrated. The fact they lost to Iowa State really gets me feeling some type of way now. But Duke's inconsistent. Like if Duke brings their best game, they can play with them. I think Houston's just a more stable team overall, but I would lean Duke 4.5.
I'm on the opposite. I think Houston wins this game by double digits. I think Duke's a little bit soft, and I think that Houston is, you could say Houston's overrated. I'm not going to argue that with you. I think you can make the case either way, but one thing Houston is not is soft. Like they are a rugged, physical team. They want to dive for loose balls. They want to give 100% effort on every possession, and that's what I really respect about them. All these Houston teams of the past few years. So I just think that intensity. I think it's going to wear on Duke. Maybe it starts as a close game, tied at halftime, something like that. But I think the Cougars pull it out.
There you go. And then we got Creighton, Tennessee tonight as well.
Can I start with this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think I said before yesterday's games as well, this was what I thought was the most interesting matchup of the whole Sweet 16. Kind of convenient that it is the last game of the Sweet 16. Creighton takes, I believe, it's either 8th or 9th most threes per game. I think it's like close to 30 per game, and they shoot a decent percentage. It's 36.5%, which isn't amazing, but it's definitely good enough, especially in the college game. They're going against a Tennessee team that is one of the top 3-point defenses. They hold teams to 30% from beyond the arc. So this whole game could kind of be decided by the battle of the 3-point line. And, Tennessee isn't necessarily a team of 3-point specialists, but they can shoot the ball. Dalton Connect's really good. And so I think you got the 3-point battle again between these two, and then the star matchup between Baylor Shireman and Dalton Connect. Those are the two things that I'm keeping my eye on here. Ultimately, I do think that I like Tennessee. If you're playing if you like Tennessee, I don't think there's any point in playing the spread. Like it's March Madness, some crazy stuff might happen. Laying the 2.5 probably not worth it. Just take them for minus 140, minus 145, whatever that money line is.
I think Tennessee's physicality will win this game. If Creighton gets hot from the beyond the arc, they're going to win. But overall, if like each team plays pretty stable, I think Creighton does not have the team to keep up with Tennessee for the entire game. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's again, like it goes back to stating the obvious. Like whatever a team gets hot, from three, you just can't do anything about it sometimes. Like, you're almost more equipped to overcome it in the NBA because the skill level is so much higher. In college, like, not every guy on the floor. In the NBA, everyone that plays can score. Like, no matter what you think about them, they can all score. In college, that's not the case. You've got guys out there that just don't contribute on offense. So if one team is hot from three, the other team's kind of at their mercy. But yeah, I think Tennessee's defense can reel them in. I'd go Tennessee.
All right, there we go. Tennessee. Go Vols.
All right, let's talk about these two of the 4 Elite 8 matchups. Let's start with that Illinois UConn one, because I think this is a really good matchup, Tanner. I'm not gonna lie to you. And UConn has been dogging everybody. Like, they've won by an average of 23 points over the last 9 tournament games. It has not been close. I think their average margin is close to 29 points in this game. Their lowest win was by 17. You've got an 8.5 point spread here. I think a lot of people are going to be going with the chalk. I actually want to see what some of the insights look like. Okay, so according to FanDuel, 59% of bets, 52% of the money is on UConn. So closer to that 50-50 line, still favoring UConn. Going back to our earlier conversation, though, a team like Iowa State, a team like San Diego State, even Houston, those aren't the teams to beat UConn. A defensive team does not beat UConn. You need a team that can score and score at will. That is what Illinois has done recently. Again, Terrence Shannon Jr. coming off 29 points in 22 minutes, averaging close to 29 in the tournament. I don't think Illinois wins this game, but I do think this is like we're trading basket for basket the whole way. I think Illinois keeps it close. At 8.5, I'd probably wait to see if the line moves up a little, because it's not going to move down. Like, it's not going to open, or it's not going to close UConn -7.5, -6.5. It might get up to 9-10 though, so I would wait around. But I do think Illinois is able to cover the spread in this one.
I think UConn rolls them. I think UConn absolutely beats the living what out of this team. It's, again, they can beat them. I think they're going to trade baskets. I think it's going to be relatively close in the first half. I think UConn goes in the locker room with like a 4-point lead, and then I think they just come out and Dan Hurley flips out at the half, and they come out and they play UConn basketball. I mean, when UConn, like, Illinois can score, don't get me wrong, UConn can score better. That's what it comes down to. And they play better defense. Illinois does not play good defense.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, if someone's going to beat UConn, it's going to be an upset. You know what I mean? Like, there's no obvious team to beat UConn. So, and again, I'm not saying Illinois will win this game. I just think that they're able to keep it close. One thing that's been interesting to me, at least with UConn, is, I don't want to say they start poorly, because that's not true, but they don't always blow teams out from the get-go. Like, again, San Diego State was down 9 at halftime, but for a lot of that, they were within like 4 to 6, 7. So you felt like they were right there. So to your point, like, maybe an Illinois first half spread would be worth looking at. But then, obviously, I think in the second half is really going to be where we decide what happens.
UConn's going to dog them. Like, Illinois is good, don't get me wrong, but Illinois almost lost to Iowa State last night. With how bad Iowa State played, they still kept it close. So I think.
Well, I mean, Terrence Shannon Jr. foul trouble, only played 20 minutes. Like, that plays into it.
And UConn's going to go right after him. Watch out.
I tell you what, though, they don't have a 5'8" guy to pick on like they did against San Diego State, because they were just bullying that guay.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego State was pretty physical, but San Diego State's not good. This is a better matchup for UConn. I still think UConn covers. You can't say they're not gonna with how good they've been. And then our last game here, Alabama Clemson. Clemson is a 3.5 point underdog.
Is this the college football playoff?
Yeah, it's college football playoff. Well, the old college football playoff, not anymore. Not in the NIL era. This will never be the college football playoff now.
Who do you like in this one? I mean, Clemson plus 3.5 going into the tournament. I think you would have seen the spread be a little bit larger in favor of Alabama, but Clemson has been pretty good here. And I actually believe our friend Greg might have favored Clemson in this game in his breakdown.
Clemson's, because Alabama, they need to score. Like, if they have a tough shooting night, like, they're in trouble, because they really don't play any defense at all. So I would lean towards Clemson plus 3.5. I'd probably live bet it. I think you're going to get better chances. Potentially lean towards the over 2, which is at 164.5. Because for Clemson to win this game, they're going to have to run the floor with Alabama. So this is like a 10-point lower total than we usually get with Alabama. So I think it's worth going over because Alabama can score 100 points if they really want to.
What's the total at? Sorry,
164.5.
So Greg Peterson, VSiN guy, Tanner and I's colleague, good friend, he has Clemson in his breakdown favored by 2 points with a total of 168.
Yeah, I would take the over for sure. That would probably be my one play in this game.
Yeah, I'd probably, I don't know, because again, like Clemson isn't an amazing offensive team, but they're not, like I said earlier, Clemson doesn't really do a whole lot bad. Like they're just solid at pretty much everything. They're not great, they're not bad. So I don't know. I think if you're going to go over, then you kind of almost have to pick Bama to cover this spread, which is what I'm doing. I would take Bama at the -3.5. Clemson can win this game if Alabama doesn't make their shots. That's always the caveat with them. They play at such a frenetic pace that they've got to be able to make their shots. But that being said, I think UNC is better pretty much across the board than Clemson is, and Bama was just able to beat them in a very close game. It was a tough matchup. Like it showed a lot about the championship resiliency of Alabama. The fact they were able to go shot for shot, ultimately pull out a win after being behind. So I like the Tide. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. I'm going the over. Roll over. Anyways, guys, that was our breakdown. We broke down the entire thing this morning for you guys. Got a big show to watch.
It's all done. And nobody go look at my bracket score, please. Bracket, it's not good.
My bracket's terrible too, but at least I picked UConn. So if you didn't pick UConn, you look pretty bad right now. Everyone, I had UNC in a couple brackets just for fun, but
I said Auburn or UConn wins it all. So like I'm still alive, right?
No, because Auburn lost to Yale, so you get disqualified for that. Because Yale's terrible too.
Yeah, fair enough. But I picked you. You know what? UConn I had UConn on a futures bet at plus 1,400 last year. So I'm still rooting for UConn as a byproduct of that.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that was Ride the Line for March 29th, Friday. Grant, take us out here.
Yeah, guys, please, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. And also, again, be on the lookout for the new channel, the new Ride the Line channel, which is where the show is going to be posted starting next week. Like the video if you did enjoy. Drop some comments. Let us know who you think wins on Friday and Saturday. And as always, we will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.